Hello, Whitey.
Hello.
Good to see you, mate. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Not too bad yourself. What can I get for you?
The finest beer that you have here.
Finest beer we have. Yes, I can absolutely serve you some of that, my friend. I'll be honest, my pouring technique has been a little bit out of practice.
That's
so
fine.
I'll do my best for you today.
I'm used to it sometimes in the UK. You know? A beer is a beer.
How you finding Lufferton?
Yeah, the place is amazing, man. Seriously, like, out of all the tournaments that I've been to, you know, not many compared to some people, but it's the setup here and the location is beautiful. It really
Awesome.
is.
Good to hear, man. We put a lot of effort and a lot of work behind this one. So
big shout out to you guys. It's the teams are loving it, especially for these younger players. It's amazing.
There you go.
Thank you very much.
One beer for you.
Thank
Not
you
got a
very
lot
much.
of head on that one, so...
Oh, mate, it's beautiful. That's your new career.
Yeah, mate. I hate head so much. I always go to bars and I always question how they're able to do such terrible pouring in their time. So,
Tastes beautiful as well.
Yeah, man. Look, so I wanted to. I mean, look, let's talk a little bit about what you've had coming up at the moment, because like you've been in a weird position, I think, as a UK coach on a Finnish team. How does that work? Because I'm sat there thinking to myself, I don't understand a lick of Finnish at all.
Yeah.
But you seem to have just found a place within this squad, and do you guys speak English on the team? Like,
yeah, the story is pretty crazy. I mean, to run you back, if I was to explain it, we might be here for a few hours. But I saw the application. Like, someone tagged me in the tweet, like they was looking for a new academy coach. So I went onto the article link and read through it all, of course. And at the bottom, it was like it was mandatory. It said that you have to be speaking fluent Finnish and English. And I immediately just went, well, I can't say a word of Finnish, so like, I'm not going to reply. And then something just like kicked into me, like, just shoot your shot. I was currently working at Endpoint at the time. Big shout out to Endpoint. I love those guys over there. They've done a lot for me. And I just, you know, went for it and sent in my application, went through a stage process. There was like 5 or 6 stages, quite in-depth stuff. And before I knew it, I had an interview with Natu, Mika, Nicholas, all of the top guys at ENCE, general manager, CEO, blah, blah, blah. And I was in a room, like, on Google Meets, having an interview with them, and I was like, how have I got here? And it was like, there was a funny situation, because after I had that initial meeting with them to see what I was like, I had the final sort of interview, and that was with Mika, I think it was with Mika and Emily Rumera. And I was having my surgery at the time, and like...
What surgery is this?
The surgery I had last year was like, it's super in-depth to talk about, but finally getting to the recovery now for me. But I was going through that, and when they emailed me the scheduled appointment, I was in hospital for like 3 days, so I didn't reply. And for some reason, it must have been meant to be, because I completely missed the interview. If anyone else did that, they would have just said, oh, don't worry about this guy, you know, let's go for the next one. Emily Romero, he emailed me again and said, oh, you didn't turn up. Do you want to reschedule? And I was like, oh, my God. So I was like, yeah, straight away, rescheduled. And then as soon as I joined, he was like, you've got the job. And I was like, oh, my God. And that's like meant to be for me, really. But yeah, to briefly answer it, like, I just thought to myself, I didn't know in regards to what roster they wanted to build. We didn't know if it was going to be a 5 Finnish team. I just wanted to be a part of it, and I knew that I had experience in building an academy team and knew what it took. So I just shot my shot, and, well, here we are.
Landed a headshot at that one, mate.
Yeah.
Like, it was the most perfect one, it seemed. It seems such an unlikely sort of coincidence, and it's like, again, I just kind of wanted to know, like, how does it even work? Because, like, yeah, you get the job, but as you mentioned, the description said that it needed to be Finnish and English speaking. Yeah. So, like, does the team speak English, or...?
Yeah, so the way we started, like, a lot of in-depth stuff happened because, to be honest with you, it's one of the hardest roles that I've ever had to take on, to be honest. Like, I've learned so much of... I thought I was at the top of the game of coaching when I first joined, and I was nowhere near. And when we first started out, of course, it was so hard to get used to these kids. Like, Finnish culture, Finnish personality is totally different to the UK, especially me. So I had to adapt. But we came into it, and the longer we've gone on, we've planned out so many different things. Like, we've tried different new things. We've tried different approaches to our usual practice days. Like, at the start of this year, we said to ourselves that we're going to go 90% English and 10% Finnish. We started out for 2 or 3 months grinding through the slump that we went through, just primarily playing in English, because it allowed me to get more involved, to see tactically where we're going wrong. Because when they're calling in Finnish, I have to see exactly what they're doing and try to pinpoint what's been called. We try things like, in our preset tactics, the name is English. So when he's communicating and calling in Finnish and he says the word, I can notice that's, okay, we're running Godsend. So I know now that if we run Godsend, I can see what's going wrong in this strat and then polish it up and adapt that way. More recently, we've been communicating in Finnish, but we made it clear, like rule of thumb, that every single time we do a theory session, recap session, discussion, end of the day, everything is in English. And I can't, appreciate my boys any more than I say on camera. Like, they do everything they can to speak as much English for me to make sure I'm involved. And even the organisation itself, they're all amazing. They all speak amazing English. When I'm there, they make me feel so comfortable. They, of course, do have sometimes Finnish conversations, but that's just part and parcel of the job, right? That's their natural language. But yeah, we've tried so many different things. I could be here listing for ages, but the primarily thing is recap sessions, theories, and end-of-day discussions always in English, and actual practice, official time, communication is in Finnish. And then tactical pauses, of course, English as well, when I'm talking and stuff like that.
You've got like a hell of an ironed-out system. That's actually incredible, because I don't even know where to start when it comes to building a team or being a coach in that sort of capacity. And obviously, you've had experience in the past being part of the UKCS scene. And I kind of wanted to ask, like, what's the differences between the coaching from an Endpoint Academy, for example, versus an ENCE Academy?
Do you know what? It was a big challenge for me. Like, if someone from start to finish had a recording from like everything we've went through and I've gone through, it's like an emotional roller coaster. Like, I've broke down to this team. I'm 25 years old and I've broken down to like some of these kids at 18, 19, 20, like times where it's not a rough situation, but a really, really, emotional situation where you need to express yourself correctly. And there's times where we've had team talks and I've expressed myself that I don't feel a part of the team. I need you guys to talk to me. I need you guys to help me, because if you cannot help me and try to involve me with this language barrier, it's never going to work. And they do everything they can to try and involve me where necessary. And the difference between UK and Finland is quite massive, really. Like, in regards to the negative culture, I think it's very much the same. And if not at times, no disrespect to the Finns, I think it's worse. Like, some of these kids, like, even my players itself, and they know this, we've had discussions about it, so it's not bad me saying it. They have this, like, negative culture where, like, they can't find the positives of something. Whether it's a loss, whether it's a bad mistake, whether it's a bad day, they can't seem to find, okay, in 2 hours the day's going to be better, or we're going to win tomorrow, or we're going to improve on our Inferno and we're going to win the next game. Like, it's very hard for them to find those positives. And I think that's a lot worse than the UK. The difference is they have this mindset that the work ethic of actually individually grinding is a lot higher. Now, no disrespect to the UK scene, I love everyone there, but they just have this like extra grit when it comes to training themselves, and that's why mechanically the skill is there in Finland. We have amazing mechanical skill players in the UK, but I think it's very similar. It's very, very similar. But I would say the biggest thing that I learned the most was literally just like the negative culture. That's how I've managed to try to help these boys as much as I can, because I've learned it in the UK already. Like, the negative culture we have there, very much similar in Finland, but it's very, very much the same.
It's kind of incredible actually talking about UKCS here in Norway while you're coaching a Finnish team. And for me and you actually, like, because we both come from the same roots essentially. But it's funny how down all the years I've known of your work. I've seen what you've done in teams, playing, whether it be with Up the Medica or something like that. That's a reference that only you and I are going to understand. But like, things like that, and even coaching from the endpoint side. And I don't think we've ever actually properly spoken to each other.
No, we haven't. Like, do you know what? It's crazy. I remember we had a brief discussion, like maybe at Alyssa, like maybe a hello and stuff like that. But sometimes when you're just in this like field of work, you just like sometimes don't get the time just to connect with people, right? But I'm glad we finally having this discussion, because like you said, we're from the same root, same background. We should be having conversations, especially when we know or been a part of this scene for so long, especially in a lovely, place like this in Norway. We can talk about the UK scene. I think that's one of the things, like when you're passionate about something, it doesn't matter where you go, even if I migrate to Finland and, you're away casting here, there and everywhere, that you're always proud of your root and where you come from,
I mean, look, I want to talk about UKCS, because I've been a little bit publicly critical of the scene itself, because I still think internationally there's a major stigma about it. So, like, having been out in the big wide world, what are your thoughts on like just the UK scene in general?
Do you know what? Like, I've always been positive about the UK scene because I do love it. Like, for me, I think it's changed over time. If you look back to the days when it was like OG days and there was like a lot of experienced UK players still playing, whether they have a negative stigma behind them, they have a bad personality, whatever. Some of these names that you look back in the past, Cryptic, Sheiky, you know, Rattlesnake, all of these guys, you can list off 100 of them. Of course, some of them aren't playing anymore, some of them are in Valorant, some of them are, you know, doing other things, which is respecting. But for me, it's like, I actually think, because I remember when you've been critical, because I've seen your tweet and even I subtweeted it. I remember. But I actually,
everyone subtweeted,
yeah,
to be
but
fair.
But again, the context of your tweet was taken a little bit out of proportion. But again, that's a story for another day. But I actually think it's good. Sometimes when you have someone that's constantly critiquing the UK scene, it makes them hungry to even more succeed. And if you look at recently, I mean, the Into the Breach core, like, you know, qualifying for Legends, that's incredible. But I think the way we have at the moment with our scene, there is actually hunger there. There is fire there. There's players coming through because the game is more polished now. There's more routes to get into things. You've got more organisations trying to push for things. You look at Endpoint; they're trying to push their beyond, tournaments and stuff like that. With their HQ, we never had that before. We had the typical I-Series, we had the typical Epic Lands, which were amazing, don't get me wrong. But there's more routes now. UK circuit, even though it gets, you know, mocked and critiqued all of the time, but it's still something to express yourself. Now, I actually think if people can focus more on themselves rather than other people in the UK scene, they will succeed. And I've said this for a long time. It's gotten worse over time. There is people in the scene, and this happens in every scene, that are too focused on other people's lives than themselves. We're all here to do the same thing. We're all here to try and achieve the next goal, but yet they want to critique and put someone else down when they're making it a step further. Someone gets announced to join the team and they're cancelled for something that they had recorded 3-4 years ago. People aren't, they're so jealous of other people's success or a little bit of limelight that they want to knock them down straight away. And that's the sad part. Like, if you want the scene to succeed, you want other people to succeed in the scene. You know, and there's very few people that get out of that process. You look at Messi, right? No one's out there trying to flame Messi and say, oh, Messi's this, Messi's that, or oh, I have a recording from Messi from years ago. That's one guy that's escaped the scene, so to speak. But then other people, I mean, I could use examples, maybe not use them here, but you look at another kid gets announced for a team, he gets cancelled from a recording that someone had. Why would you do it? It's a guy that's finally making it, and he's actually benefiting you by succeeding because he's given shine to your scene, you know? I just think there's too many people that aren't happy on other people's success in the scene, and that's why it's always been dragged down.
Yeah, I mean, the negative attitude is something that I think I've purported a little bit too much in my own time, I have to admit, in that sort of sense. But I think a lot of people don't understand is that sometimes you have to combine the negative out of love. Like, I don't say the things that I say because of the fact that I hate the scene. I love the scene. I still attend all those little events and whenever I can. So 100%. It's awesome to sort of hear people breaking out internationally, sort of like expressing that, because it is true that you and I, guys like us, and even probably guys like Messi, and, you know, guys like Thomas, who have now broken their way into that major sort of capacity, we all love the scene and we want to see it succeed. So, like, you know, I think addressing those problems is such a huge deal overall. And sort of like working within the inside is something that I think a lot of people don't do enough of. Like, I'm happy to admit that I don't attend as many LANs as I used to do. I don't work within the capacity that I used to sort of research in UKCS. And, you know, like, from your perspective as a coach, you know, obviously now you're doing so well on ENCE, but like, why not consider something like a UK team?
Yeah, I mean, do you know what? It's something in the back of my mind. I tried to do this with ENCE Academy, and no disrespect to anything that happened there. I think the way we planned it was maybe too forced, and I think the way I wanted to do it was totally against all odds. And from a business sort of mind, I wasn't experienced in like how much it could cost. Now, for me, generally the way I wanted to do it was have 5 players that were near on pretty much full-time salary, or at least halfway between part-time and full-time, enough to dedicate to a full-time schedule. And with the ENCE Academy, we just couldn't do that. And if I would have known that, I maybe wouldn't have done it, because I was trying to build what I'm trying to build here at ENCE. And obviously they're supplying that extra thing, and you can talk about budgets, you can talk about whatever. Of course, ENCE did everything they could to do that, and it just didn't go the way we wanted. And I regret that so much, but I don't at the same time, because it gave me the experience I needed to be here. But I actually think in some ways I'd love to see my career forever in ENCE. Like, I would love to keep building Finnish teams, because I love this organisation now. Like, I'm a part of the family. But in the back of my mind, I've always said, whatever happens here, if I succeed and I get an offer, you know, to build sort of this in the UK, I would do it in a heartbeat. I would go back home in a heartbeat, you know, like home is where the heart is, and the UK scene for me, I want to one day build UK teams, even if it's academy level, and if I can push on 15 players, which is 3 teams, and they can go on to play, you know, tier 2, nearly tier 1 events, that for me is amazing. That's what I want to do. I just want to get cycle players in, boom, 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 and almost like chucking them across the counter. Like, yep, you're trained, you're gone.
Like me on a busy night at the bar.
Yeah, exactly, just hand me points. But I just want to do everything I can for the scene. Like, for me, it's a lot of people, I've had critiques before in the past, people say, oh, you put on a show in front of the camera, you're not this behind closed doors. No one is the same behind closed doors. Every person's different. Everyone has to be professional. But my true route to who I want to be for the UK scene is push as many players through. And yeah, to answer your question, like, I would 100%, if the funding was behind me, build a UK team. Like, even if it wasn't an academy team. My dream is to try and take a UK team, even like the likes of Into the Breach, they've kind of done it now with the core. Endpoint have done it with the core. You know, that they're doing it. But man, I want to do it with a 5 British lineup or United Kingdom lineup, whatever way you want to say it. And even Ireland as well, because obviously they're part of the circuit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll definitely come back home if the time was right. But for now, I'm embracing easy French, you know?
Well, until that day, I do look forward to welcoming you back to the UK scene. Yep. But right now, we are in Norway, we are in Lofoten, we are in the Arctic Circle, which is something I never thought I'd ever be within this close to the Northern Lights in my entire life. So it's incredible how like Far Esports has taken guys like you and me. Yeah. I don't know much about like your personal background, but I was always a street kid. So it's kind of like very curious to see how coming from that sort of like very poor sort of like background, I've come to this sort of position. And for the guys of ENCE, you know, like I can imagine this must also be such an invaluable experience to that team.
Yeah, I mean, I'm used to obviously going to Helsinki every single time we boot camp. I'm not living there at the moment, but I feel like I am because I'm always there, which is an amazing thing. And every time I go there, it's an experience that never changes. It's just amazing. But even for these kids, they've never travelled much. I think Miltzi's had the most sort of like international experience with a boot camp in Czechoslovakia, I think it was. But the rest of them are just, mainly just gone to Helsinki, play tournaments in their national sort of, their country. And for me, I've been here, there and everywhere. Like at Endpoint and other teams, we've travelled to tournaments. But to come to here, wow, tops the list. Like for me, and like you said about your background, very similar to me, like I can't begin to put into words how crazy it is to travel to these tournaments and feel privileged. Like, you're not like you feel like a superstar, but you're not a superstar, you know? Like, you're just a human being. But, like, to be able to come here and as soon as you get off the bus, you're being welcomed and you come into here, food's being served, you've got content, cameras. You just feel privileged to be in this career. And especially for them kids as well, like, the excitement is beyond level. It's like kids at Christmas, you know?
Does anyone ever get that imposter syndrome standing in the airport? Like, am I really about to do this?
Yeah,
am I about to just fly to a...
I do. Every time I'm stood there, like, people on my Facebook, like, I did this a few years ago, off topic a little bit, but a few years ago, I never used to like talking about my job. I used to hate it, especially the stigma in the country. People don't understand it. People are so uneducated about esports compared to the likes of countries of Denmark and stuff like that. So what I started doing was, besides my anxiety, I was like, I'm actually going to start posting about my journey, and not even to show off. Like, I just wanted to educate people. And now I've got so many people in the past few years messaging me like, man, your story is like crazy. Like, where you go is amazing. And even I can't believe it. Like, when they say to me, like, that's where you work, that's where you go. I say, yeah, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. There's a lot of mental stress and emotional stress behind it, and a lot of hard work that people don't realise. But yeah, the privileges of travelling to a place like this, man, wow. I'd love to come back here. Hopefully it never ends.
I will pass that on to Joanna, actually. She might be able to
Make sure
extend
I'm
this.
invited. Oh, what's that with you? I don't have to be a coach.
100%, mate. Well, look, future. Let's talk about future a little bit. Because, like, obviously, this whole event circuit is to prove the heroes of tomorrow, right?
Yep.
We started it on the online environments to see academy teams like yourselves and see who's going to be those guys in the next step. And obviously, CSGO, or Counter-Strike in general, is taking its next step to CS2.
Yeah.
What are your impressions of Counter-Strike 2?
Yeah, I mean, when it came out, we was actually at, was it at a boot camp? I think it was at the boot camp when it got announced. And we was all like, oh my God. Like, super pumped, saw the videos. For me, I think it's the best thing that could happen to Counter-Strike at this current state. I do think, of course, it needs tweaks, but for all the critics on CS2, I mean, you look at Counter-Strike Go when it first came out. Like, I mean, I didn't even play it when it first came out, but if you look at it then to where it is now, of course it's going to change. Like Counter-Strike and Valve and the developers, they're not stupid. I mean, people have their opinions, but they're going to try and make the best version of the game possible to ensure that it keeps bringing in money, keeps bringing in viewership, and keeps being Counter-Strike for whatever it is. You know, Counter-Strike wouldn't have survived 20 plus years if they just left it, there's gaps in the smoke, let's leave it. My initial impressions, I think it's so cool. The map updates, amazing. Graphics look insane. The guns, the noises, of course you get used to them. There's been changes before with the gun noises. The one thing I'm worried about is the nade with the smokes, the gap in the holes, like how much will the meta change? Because if you look at the tactical side of Counter-Strike and the utility usage, that's one of the most key important things to team play. Right? Especially on maps. And that's what, like, the way I pictured it, and I said this to my family to try and explain to me, you picture like a semi-final of like IEM Rio, for example, 15-14, T-sides on overpass are coming into A with an AXQ. You've got a smoke stairs, you've got a smoke mid-site, you've got a smoke bank, you've got a Molotov behind truck. Like, how much of that meta is going to change in a 15-14 crucial scenario if one guy's just spamming the smoke and one guy launches an aid, like... How much is that going to change? You've got to be picking up on so much and be prepared for so much. But I think there'll be little tweaks. If anything, I think they might lower the scale of the gap and might give you a little bit of edge. Like you compare like a one-way smoke to shooting through the smoke. Will it be sort of like a one-way if you just shoot a little bit, you know? So my initial impressions, I think it's going to be amazing for the future of CS, that's for sure. And I look forward to the changes.
Yeah, smokes definitely, I think, are going to be the big sort of like a sticking point. And I actually kind of think that it's kind of like, I don't know if it's kind of like the gaps generated by bullets are sort of a bit more of a buff to counter, a nerf to counter the buff, if you will. Because like the way that the smoke spread now, did you know that actually the two smokes you used to cover off CT and Dust 2, you can now do it with one of them.
Yeah,
because of the way it expands.
Yeah. Someone tweeted about it. Like it's the way they expand is super cool. Like if you put a smoke under it, it hits there and comes out. You know, like the mechanical side of the game looks so cool. And you seem to think like, what more can they do with the game? Like with the new updates, you know, the new maps that may come out. And I think the overall graphic change is incredible. It's so pleasing to see. Of course, I think they need to open the beta for more people because it's going a bit stale now. I still haven't even played it. I've seen people play it. But I actually think there's going to be a big announcement, of course, in the major, like during the major in June or whatever it is, and then for the summer. So
my theory is that we're going to get the major play out in Global Offensive, and then that will be like the last Valve supported like event, and maybe we might have a few more events after that to sort of like, you know, peter out CS:GO. Yeah. But by that point, Counter-Strike 2 would have launched, and everyone would just be transitioning
transition. Yeah, and it's kind of like end of an era really, because like how many people will still play Go and how many people will switch? Because if you think about it, it's not a new game. It essentially is just an update, really. Like, it's Counter-Strike 2, but it's just an update. That's the way I see it. Like, it's the exact same game with an update. That's the way I've just pitched it. But I agree. I think in June or whenever the major starts, I don't know the official date, I think like at the end of the playoffs, like in the grand final, before the grand final pre-show, I think they'll do like some huge announcement and everyone will get super excited because then in the next 2 weeks, the actual game will be released. So yeah, exciting times for Counter-Strike fans and players. Yeah,
I'm very optimistic. I've got a lot of hope about that. And hopefully ENCE also has a bit of optimism in that sort of sense. I wanted to ask about, you know, where you see the Academy team sort of fitting into what the landscape's going to look like, the change sort of environment that we'll have when CS2 comes out.
Yeah, I mean, I think with a new game or new update, whatever you call it, I think that it's gonna bring so many more investors and tournament organisers into play because the game's gonna get so popular again. I mean, you talk about so popular, it's hitting records every week at the moment on game players played. Sorry. But I genuinely think this update will bring so much more to it. And I mean, in regards to academies and stuff, I've always been worried since the drop of WePlay. You know, fair play to those guys. I've got full respect for them with the situation. But we need a league like that. You know, you saw Fnatic Rise and other teams drop out immediately when WePlay was cancelled or before the announcement because they had a meeting. And for me, I've always said, like, academy teams shouldn't rely on, like, one sort of partnership league. That's just not Counter-Strike, and that's just not how it should be. And ENCE fully supported that. They said that to me without even me saying it. So that's when I knew I was at home, and they believe about the development of these players because they said that we don't need to rely on WePlay. But with tournaments like, even here, for example, Miss Games, I said it during Dweg the other day when we arrived, this is massive for academy teams. And if somewhat if you can continue to play in things like this, it is super beneficial for these academy players going forward. And who knows, there might be someone else that may come in. With Counter-Strike 2, there's more people coming in, and I think with the recent success we've had in academy teams, you look at Mouse, for example, at the major and stuff with their 3 academy players, that's huge. And that's the way the new system should be. Somewhat like football. Of course, in football, you don't always look externally to buy it because it costs a lot of money, right? So they'll look internally in their academies and blah, blah, blah. That's how a football system works. And I think that's come into play now with Counter-Strike, because that was my main goal. When I saw how football academies work in football, that approach and coaching I wanted to bring to CS. And it's happening slowly.
Yeah, I mean, certainly with the rest of the academy scene, it feels like that's the new breeding ground for new talents, and hopefully ENCE can take advantage of that. But you said, obviously, the Academy League's gone. This is probably, obviously your primary focus as of right now to get through this week and try and do well in Lufferton. So, you've got prospects coming up. How are you feeling about that, and not only that, just the whole tournament in general? How are you fancying your chances?
Yeah, I mean, for me, every tournament we come into, I want, of course you want to win, right? But we've had, not by our own fault, we've had pressure on ourselves from ourselves, of course, that, we want to lift the trophy. We haven't lifted a trophy yet. We've only won online tournaments, won an online trophy. Like, let's win a LAN trophy. And we've came very close in these national finish leagues. Alyssa, the Felt, the Alyssa LANs and stuff like that. We've come super close. But because we've been so focused on that, we haven't really thought about, taking a different approach. And with missed games, we've literally not even spoke about the upcoming games. We generally, we didn't even make it clear, but I think everyone knows. Me and Romero definitely made it clear to each other. Let's not bring anything up. Let's not overthink it. We're in a good habit at the moment. We're playing very well. We're in a good environment, good team spirit. Let's just go there and play. Because the one thing that we're here for, of course we want to win the trophy, but the one thing we're here for is for these boys and the experiences. And what Missed Games is offering outside of playing the Counter-Strike is massive for team building and massive for these young guys' experiences. The content, the activities, the whole trip itself. This is what it makes to be an academy team. So if we come here and we didn't win the trophy, we would be happy because we've gained this experience as a team. And I think that's going to give us the edge tomorrow against prospects, is because we're not focused about winning. We're just focused about playing good and being happy. And we haven't took that approach before. And that's why we've came so close. Even in our last LAN final versus Yano, 1 map up, 13-6 lead on Mirage. Lose the map, lose the 3rd map. Absolutely devastated. I was behind stage even crying at that point, because it means a lot to me for these boys. And when you see how upset they are, it makes you feel even worse. So our focus is being happy this event. Looking forward to playing prospects tomorrow. We've played them a couple of times before. We can even talk about the 15-3 lead that we lost against them on Ancient, which is a PTSD story. But yeah, we're looking forward to it, and we're going to give them a good game, that's for sure. Well,
I'm looking forward to that game, Whitey. I'm glad you've enjoyed your beer, and I've definitely enjoyed this chat with you.
So amazing.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming, man.
Thank you.
And I hope you enjoy the rest of Lufferton, mate.
Appreciate it.